Today we're counting down RetroRyan's top 5 favorite video games.
I want my RetroRyan TV.
My guest today keeps nostalgia alive on RetroRyan TV. And once you tune in, you'll never look at gaming the same way again. Ryan streams live Tuesday nights at 10 p.m. Eastern and takes live requests for video games and music. His show takes you back to the 80s and 90s with commercial breaks featuring classic toys and gorgeous models in his trademarked Moments of Zen. Ryan also interviews other creators on his Super Mega Retro podcast. Links below as always, and let's get right into it. What is your first favorite video game?
You know, the first one that just pops in my head is Mega Man 2.
Right.
On NES. I was always obsessed with it as a kid. Just even down to the bosses and, figuring out what power is best to defeat them. And the soundtrack just feels like a greatest hits record. Like, it's every level has amazing songs. And usually when you play even good games, like, there's a few songs that stand out, but not every level.
Right.
So
absolutely.
that's one I had as a kid. I loved it so much on NES. One of my first games I ever got. Yeah, Mega Man 2. The Blue Bomber.
The Blue Bomber is hard to beat, and you're the first person to mention a Mega Man game, but I gotta say I'm not really surprised given some of the games I've seen you play before. And one of the best platformers ever, right? I mean, just hard to beat. And I know big Mega Man fans always talk about Mega Man 2 as one of the really special ones.
Plus, it's not like super frustrating. It's like it's very friendly to a newcomer. Like, to play that, you can jump right in. You're gonna start beating some bosses. Like, if you start with the first one, you're just gonna die so much.
Right.
As a noob, going into that.
And I often have. I've tried Mega Man several times in life, and it made me want to chuck the controller through the TV, just like when I play Ghouls and Ghosts and Super Ghouls and Ghosts. I never make it past level 2 on those games. So, but you're saying I might actually have a shot at Mega Man 2? I might actually be able to beat it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Because Mega Man 1 kind of made me scared of the series as a kid. I played Mega Man X briefly on Super Nintendo, and I enjoyed that one a lot, but I've never tried the others since then. So
I would say 2 and 3 are not too standoffish as far as difficulty. They're
okay.
You can get in there on 2 and 3 and have a good time.
And I think they're on Virtual Console on Switch now, right? Or at least some of the Mega Man games are. I'm pretty sure. So
yeah, I'm not positive on that one. I know the anthologies are always on sale.
Right.
On the store, they're always pretty cheap to get the whole anthology.
Yeah, and I was thinking about it on the Switch just because I played Super Mario World and Mario Brothers 3 last year on there, and it has this really cool feature where if you're, anywhere in the game, you can just insta save, right? And so just come back and instantly resume exactly where you were in the game. You don't have to worry about save slots or any of the old stuff we did. You got to beat a 5-hour long level to save your game. It's so much better than it was when we were kids for saving.
True.
So that's the other edge I was thinking. If I try any of these older platformer games, it's like I'd really like to have that save state feature.
No, I know what you mean. I know how you feel.
You save a lot of time doing that, but what a cool pick, man. The Mega Man 2, wow, that's awesome. So,
and I don't even mind the cover art.
Oh, right.
Like, a lot of people, the first one is so bad.
Yeah.
The first one's so janky, the cover art.
Mm-hmm.
But I actually like the sci-fi kind of classic, almost Buck Rogers looking cover on the second one, even though it doesn't represent what the game looks like so much. I appreciate it. It reminds me of a Ray Bradbury science fiction book cover or something. I love it.
Absolutely. And one of the really cool, it's fun you mentioned that because
I think one of the coolest things about the games that came out when we were kids is so much of the box art was so magical and exciting. You know, like the kind of things like you would largely determine what game you would buy or rent just from the box art, you know, and it was totally different from now. You know, we didn't have the internet, we couldn't look at reviews and 10 YouTube walkthroughs before we bought a game. You just had to go by what was written on the box and what the art looked like.
Yeah.
So much, and so if a game had cool box art, that was a big edge back then. So yeah, that's awesome. Did you play with your friends a lot, or was this one you played more by yourself?
This is one I played more on my own. My next pick will be the one that I love playing with friends.
Okay. Anything else you want to say about Mega Man, or do you want to move on to your next pick?
As far as Mega Man, you know, when I started collecting when I got older, getting 1 through 6 on cart was a must.
Sure.
It was mandatory. Because when I was young, I didn't even know what the hell the other ones looked like. I think I might have had 3, 2 and 3, but I was like so captivated, like, and just, I can't believe there's 6 in total. I want to see what the other ones look like. And they weren't easy to find. You know how it was. If it wasn't in KB or Toys R Us,
oh yeah,
good luck. You know, good luck finding it used.
Absolutely.
You know,
it was
that
so
was
hard to find. Otherwise,
that was something that I seeked out. One of the first things I got was all 6, and they're not cheap getting all 6, just even loose. Like it's $400 or $500.
Wow.
To get all 6 of those.
Now, as I was a casual Mega Man fan, 1 through 6, did they all have American releases, or were some of these Japanese only?
Yeah.
Okay.
The 1 through 6 all made it on the North American NES.
Okay.
They're called like Rockman and whatever. I don't even pay attention to what the Japanese ones are called. But yeah, 1 through 6 definitely came out in North America for the NES.
Cool. And then we missed 7, 8, and 9. Is that how that worked? And then 10 came, or X came on the Super Nintendo?
7, yeah, I think 7 and 8 were on the Super Nintendo.
Oh, they were.
I may be wrong. And then there's X. Then there's X, X2, and X3.
Yeah.
So.
And then the later ones came out on the PlayStation, right?
Yep. Then there's PlayStation ones.
Okay. Cool. Well, that's awesome. I'll definitely check out Mega Man 2 first when I get into that series. So thanks for the pick.
That'll be a fun one to have on vinyl too.
Oh,
the whole soundtrack.
Yeah, that would be a fun one to have for sure. And I'm sure there's been a lot of people that have done full symphonic versions of it by now. It wouldn't just be the old 8-bit music.
Yeah, exactly. I'll listen to any of that stuff, whether it's remixed or the original version, or
right. I do that too. I can't tell you how many different versions of Guile's theme from Street Fighter 2 I have.
Yeah.
And they never get old. I could just listen to them back to back. I love that music.
True.
So yeah, cool, man. Well, that's a great first pick. What's your next one?
So the game I enjoyed playing with friends, because I just like to introduce them to it, was River City Ransom.
Okay.
And a lot of people go Double Dragon, but I go River City Ransom because I like to get the abilities, and you get the abilities by buying the book, like the Dragon Kick or the I forget even what off the top of my head the exact powers are. But you go into the store, you buy these books that are like about $30 of, you accumulate the tokens by beating up the bullies on the street.
Yep.
And then you take your coins and you buy, it's like Dragon Punch or Dragon Kick. And then you can do this super quick kick and take out the opponents much easier. But I just love the way it looks, the characters. And to me, it just looked better than Double Dragon 1 or 2. It had that arcade feel, and you could play with your friends. One of the characters' names is Ryan. So, I mean, you already know that obviously I'm going to connect with that.
Right.
It's like I happen to get this game as a kid as a gift, and I can play as a character named me. So I loved it.
That's awesome.
They yell funny things out when you kill the sprites, the bad guys.
Mhm.
They'll yell out like "mommy" or like "barf," like when you kick them. Or there's like a sense of humor to it. One of the parts you revitalize your character by going to the sauna, and they have a cutscene, and it's like showing the guy like washing his butt. It's pretty hilarious for an NES game that snuck in there.
Right.
There's a good storyline throughout. Something funny about the game was I never knew how to beat it as a kid, because when you get to the high school at the end of the game to do the final boss fight, it wouldn't let me in. And the reason is because as a kid you click through the dialogue kind of quick. You just want to keep going, right?
Sure.
Well, one of the dialogues was telling me to backtrack in the game. So I had to go back and refight a boss.
I see.
So, because I wasn't doing that, the end, by the time I got to the end, it wasn't unlocked.
Mhm.
So as an adult, I obviously figured that out. And why is this high school always locked when I get there? And then now, so then I figured out how to make it open by backtracking in the game and beating that boss fight, and then going back to the high school. So
I can't imagine how many games there are that I didn't beat for the same reason. Or
I know,
I got
right?
to the end, or I missed some little critical thing in the middle and made it just impossible to beat. But I'm sure there's a lot of.
Well, and I want to know who is that kid that, when you have a dialogue-heavy game, who is that kid that's like 8 years old that is just hanging on every word like it's Edgar Allan Poe poetry? Who is that kid? Tell me that kid, because that's not how we were. We wanted to play.
Right.
We wanted to get in and punch people, right?
That's
We're
right.
a kid.
We wanted to, get in there, jump on the turtles, and save the princess, right? Right away.
Yeah, so it's so easy to miss that essential line of dialogue telling you got to go back there and beat this guy.
Yep.
Because you're just like, let me go, I want to keep moving.
Right. Absolutely. Now, for me, it wasn't so bad because I did get into RPGs at a relatively young age, but at 8 years old, you're right. I certainly wouldn't have had the patience. I was skipping all that dialogue to get straight to the action.
Well, that's why you like River City Ransom, because they always put an asterisk or whatever you call it on it, because it's a beat 'em up with RPG concepts in it. Because when you're going to these stores, you're going to the stores and restaurants to get your power back up. So like you're getting beat up on the street, you're beating these people up like you would in a Double Dragon, but now your health is depleted. You know how you get it up? You go into this restaurant, you eat a steak.
Nice.
You go into this restaurant, some pancakes or waffles, or
right.
So
it's just like real life. It's just like real life. Then.
Yeah.
You get beat up in the street, and we go to Cracker Barrel and get our 1-ups.
Revitalize, yeah. And then when you go to the bookstore, that's where you can pay a higher price from your winnings. Like when you beat up these bullies, you can buy some of these books and master like kung fu, karate abilities, like faster kick or a roundhouse kick, or and they help you excel throughout the game. But it's not an RPG in that it's very complicated with a menu system that's complicated. It's like you kind of just grab and go. Like, you get your food, you get your power up, get back in the action, kick some butt again, so.
Right. That's awesome. Yeah, no, I would really like that from the way you're describing it. And I missed this game completely. I did play Double Dragon with one of my friends when I was a kid a little bit, because he had an NES, and I remember playing that one and Battletoads at his house. But
yeah,
I never got to play River City. And I know they did the newer one, right? They did River City Girls a few years ago. But did you play that one?
I actually haven't tried that.
Okay, I heard it was great. I heard it had really good reviews, but I haven't had a chance to play it yet. So maybe at some point we can play online, because I bet that's got I bet that's got online 2-player potentially. That could be fun.
You know what's funny too is they put out a Jay and Silent Bob NES style beat 'em up game like in the mall, like at Mallrats,
Oh, really?
as like a background, and that is based on inspiration of looking exactly like River City Ransom,
Oh, okay.
similar.
That is awesome. I
So,
love Mallrats.
yeah.
That's my favorite Kevin Smith movie. So that's
Oh yeah.
that's very cool. Yeah. Is it just called Mallrats or is it called something else? Do you know?
It's like called maybe like Jay and Silent Bob something, and but you can get it digitally, I think,
Okay.
on like the PlayStation Store or Switch Store. It's like one of those cheap $10 games.
Right.
But they do a nice job of making it look just like NES. Like if it had come out,
Sure.
it even runs on my Pi, which is
Really?
funny. So
that's cool.
it runs on the NES hardware.
Mm-hmm. That's
Like
awesome.
it runs on the emulation. So like what I mean is like it's loadable on an EverDrive. Like you could run that on an EverDrive and play it on an actual NES. That game.
Nice. So have you beaten that one?
No, I haven't beaten the Jay and Silent Bob one, but I think it's interesting to point that out because you can see how far the inspiration has gone. That like even like a game that comes out today to look like an NES game is kind of paying tribute to River City Ransom style aesthetics.
Well, the concept that you described sounds so interesting to me. I'm a little surprised they didn't do more games in the series, like for the Super Nintendo or the PlayStation. Because that just sounds like
There may have been a
so
Super
interesting.
Nintendo one.
Yeah.
There may have been a Super Nintendo one, but it was a little bit style was a little bit different.
Okay. Yeah.
And then there was one that was Japanese only for the Famicom that was like in feudal Japan style.
Oh wow.
And they were all dressed up like that. So that was kind of like it was either a sequel or that was before River City Ransom. So there was a few releases, but the other thing that's interesting about that series is there's a game on NES called Crash and the Boys that they do like kind of Olympic style events with the same character look. So it's Technos again as the developer.
Okay.
So there's some sports games in the style of the characters from River City Ransom. I think they call it like the chibi style.
Yes.
It's kind of like that cute Japanese looking character style.
Yes.
Chibi.
Right. I think that's right.
They got a hockey one. They got a volleyball one. I think Super Volleyball, whatever, on NES has the same style characters. So, yeah, and I really love that style of characters in that chibi style.
Were those games good? Did you play them?
Yeah, they're decent. All those Crash and the Boys, like you're doing like funny stuff, like competitive, like you're doing like a swimming one. You're throwing like a javelin, kind of like Winter Games, but like in River City Ransom aesthetic.
That's
so
awesome.
You're doing all those competitive games against each other.
It almost sounds
I think
like
the
the
one
world
you're
is connected, right? The similar style.
And they have such a weird sense of humor. Like, I think the one you're trying to drown each other in the pool. You're like punching each other until the other one like drowns in the pool.
Yeah.
It's just weird, like fighting mixed with a pool.
Doesn't
Very odd.
That just seems like something that would never happen now, right? But it's such a cool idea for just a video game. Just something silly and funny.
A Japanese sense of humor.
Yeah.
Or it's like when you're doing the track meet, you're like kicking the other guy. You're trying to trip him up, push him, punch him.
I think
kind of like almost like road rash for running.
I think I might have played that one because that sounds really familiar. The kicking the guy on the track. I bet my friend had that game with the NES I was talking about. I'll bet he had that game. Wow, that is so cool. A relatively unique pick. I honestly I'd even forgotten about that game. I hadn't played it since I was a kid, wow, that's awesome. Just that you would, your pick would make me remember that one. Yeah, but I remember it being really funny and just a lot of fun to play.
Oh,
So,
absolutely.
yeah, I'll have to check out River City Ransom for sure. I'll see if that's
I think you'll
available
love it.
on any of my
I think you'll
systems.
love it.
No, I'm sure I will. Based on how you described it, like a beat 'em up meets RPG elements. Yeah, that's definitely my kind of thing, you know, because I'm a big fan of Castlevania Symphony of the Night and Bloodstained
Yeah.
Ritual of the Night, and they're both, you know, beat 'em ups, but with a lot of RPG elements. So, and those are some of my favorite games. So yeah, I got a feeling I'll really like River City Ransom. Cool.
Absolutely.
So, what's your third pick?
I'm gonna go Golden Axe.
Oh wow. Okay, man.
And I don't mind if it's the Genesis one.
Okay.
And I love all three of the Genesis ones. I don't mind if it's the arcade one.
Mm-hmm.
I love Golden Axe. I think it's one of the best beat 'em ups ever. I love that it's in a medieval setting with swords and shields, and I love all the different characters you can choose. The music's phenomenal once again.
Yep.
For River City Ransom, you know, just going back to that one, I can't say that the music's pretty good in that, but it's not like Golden Axe is like epic, just like Mega Man 2. I mean, you feel like you're going in an adventure. You feel like you're like in Conan, you know, with Arnold, or you feel like you're in Willow.
Absolutely.
You know, Val Kilmer in there, or you know, it's an epic quest. I love the level design. I love that you can get on the creatures.
Yes.
You know, because they're not. I can't say animals because they're like kind of creatures. They're like mythic creatures you can jump on, and some of them are dragons you can ride on and shoot fire on the enemies.
Yep.
But I've always been obsessed with Golden Axe, whether it's in the arcade, and I had it on Genesis. It's infinitely replayable.
Absolutely, and with a friend too, right? 2-player.
Yeah. You know, some people will knock it because it's a little bit cheap. Sometimes the enemies will just kind of knock you down constantly and almost like berate you and laugh as you're down. You know, they mock you. Like some of the characters just start laughing after they knock you over. But it's definitely like you can't blame the controls, because if you're good enough, you can totally get around it, all that stuff.
Sure. It's just the game challenging you to be better, I think.
Yeah.
Because I had that game. I had that for the Genesis, and I had Golden Axe 2, and they were both a lot of fun, as I recall. And I was really into all that fantasy stuff. You know, I liked Dungeons and Dragons and Lord of the Rings and all that when I was a kid. So I loved Golden Axe, and yeah, of course, it was very, like you said, very similar to Conan. And now thinking about it, those creatures you were talking about that you can ride kind of remind me of the dinosaur that the main character in Heavy Metal rides in the movie. You know, that sort of pterodactyl-like reptilian creature. It's kind of similar to the little dragons that you ride in Golden Axe. And
the music's very like, it almost puts you in a trance.
yes.
It's just it utilizes that Yamaha Genesis sound chip so well, and it's very like spacious. Like there's a lot of bass, but there's a lot of separation of the notes. It feels like you got headphones on and it's stereo.
Mm-hmm.
It's just very very atmospheric soundtrack that I love on it.
Yeah, it definitely got you in the mood for, you know, a Conan-like adventure.
Yeah.
And the action as well. Like just as I recall, it was just one of those soundtracks that was relatively unique and really added to the experience.
I feel like Sega, you know, as the developer, really threw down on that. Like that was really like a sea change in just gaming in general, just beat 'em ups in general. You know, much like Final Fight or was for beat 'em ups. There's so many were inspired after that from that, or much like
Right.
Street Fighter did for fighting games, and inspired so many after that. I feel like Golden Axe inspired like 100 other games after that that were in that style,
Sure.
and yet Golden Axe still kind of does it best in a lot of ways.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, you could definitely trace a lot of things from beat 'em ups after Golden Axe back to it. And the sequel too, I remember it was really great. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, on Genesis the sequel's amazing. It's just like a continuation. It's like when you like a band and they give you I love Green Day, right? For Dookie, and when Insomniac came out, it really just felt like an extension of Dookie, just more
Sure.
goodness.
Yeah.
And that's what like Golden Axe 1 and 2 feel like to me. Like it's just like that same graphic aesthetic. Your powers and abilities when you drop your magic a little bit different, a little bit cooler, but I love it. And it's like that didn't even come out in the arcade. Like we got that on the home console.
Right.
Golden Axe 2. So good.
That reminds me of BioShock, right? Because BioShock 2 felt exactly the same way to me. It felt like, and it even got some criticism at the time when it came out, because the reviewers said, oh, it's just too much like the first one. And I remember reading those reviews and I was like, fantastic, shut up and take my money. Give me more of the first one, And
right.
They changed a few things, right? You had you could use both your hands for weapons. That was the big change. You could use the sort of the what were they called? I forget those magic potion type things you would take and give you essentially superpowers, and you could use guns in the other hand. Like before, you could only use one or the other in the first game. So that was like the big mechanic change, but otherwise it was very similar gameplay. And I was perfectly happy with that at the time, even though some people weren't.
Yeah, and I feel like also I love the I gotta go to every aspect of the game, like music, level design, gameplay, but I love the cover art. And you even got, I think, the foldable poster in the Clam. The Clam came with the fold-out poster, and it's an epic poster.
I'll bet, because I didn't have that. I'm pretty sure I got my Genesis hand-me-down from some family friends that were older, and I think they were going to college or whatever, so like the sons didn't want to take their Genesis or whatever, so they gave it to me. And I just got that and a bunch of loose carts. I don't think I had any of the cases. So, but I've seen the box art for the Golden Axe games, and that's fantastic. But I didn't know they came with a poster. That's really cool. The first one.
Yeah, definitely.
Wow. So, do you have this game? Do you actually have it CIB right now with the poster?
No, but I have the vinyl that came out recently from this company, Data Discs. And what's really cool is it's like a translucent vinyl in gold.
Wow. Oh, wow.
See-through gold.
Awesome.
And it came with the lithographs, bro. The art prints from 1 and 2. So almost even better.
Wow.
Almost even better than the posters, because the posters are going to have that fold crease.
Right.
A 4-way fold crease. But these, like, I could frame these. I've been meaning to. They'd be beautiful in like a frame, like both of these.
Yeah, you should definitely frame them and then take photos, and I'll put them in the video of your exact setup there, or the record.
And it's also because I love He-Man, dude. Like that's why I love Golden Axe. I love He-Man. You feel like at that time when that came out, that's the closest you're gonna get to living out like a Masters of the Universe kind of fantasy in a video game.
Sure.
So besides the advanced Dungeons and Dragons arcade games, but I believe those were later, because this would have been like '89, I think. This is a pretty early Sega release.
I think they were later. Yeah, the arcade AD&D games.
The Dungeons and Dragons were definitely later.
Yeah.
So this was the closest you're gonna get at that time.
Right.
To living out that He-Man video game.
Well, like you said, it's so iconic. You can go back and hear the music, and it'll take you right back to the arcade for the first one.
Exactly.
So that is awesome. You got the vinyl for that. I'm gonna have to actually look for that myself. I'd love to have some of that music to collect. So that was your third pick. What's your third pick? I mean, I'm sorry.
What's your fourth pick?
Sonic 2.
Wow.
Sonic 2 was so epic, man. When that we gotta remember, this is a game that moved units. At this time, this was like the height of the Genesis versus Super Nintendo war,
Right.
you know, and it was white hot. This war, you know.
I remember it. Whatever Sega does, what Nintendo don't. It was brutal. The marketing campaigns they had.
And then they changed it to the packing game after, when Sonic 2, when they dropped the game, it was called Sonic Tuesday. When they dropped it, it was a massive seller, just selling out everywhere. And then they started to package the Genesis Model 1 with Sonic 2 instead of Altered Beast, which really helped sell the console. And dude, it's just a perfect game. I mean, it's hard to, as good as any Sonic game is, it's hard to top Sonic 2. A lot of people love Sonic CD. I love that also.
Mm-hmm.
I love Sonic and Knuckles. I feel like the first Sonic, it just improved on everything. The pacing is better. They added Tails, which is the cool sidekick.
Yep.
It's a great mascot. It's so hard to go head to head with Mario, and I love all the Mario games. But Sonic is one of those ones that held its own for Sega, and they were deep in that war, and they were holding their own. I think I read this book, Console Wars, that I really recommend you read too. That just focuses on that, and it's written from the perspective of the CEO at the time of Sega, and everything they had to do to market the console in North America. And but they were killing it. They were going head to head with Nintendo, and they did lose the battle in the end, because once Donkey Kong Country came out, they just couldn't compete with that. Like that.
Yeah.
That put to, even in the book will say, once that was out, they just that was kind of nailing the coffin as far as who's going to win that. And I think Super Nintendo did win in the long run, sold more.
Right.
Because the Genesis just couldn't compete with those graphics.
Genesis had the speed, but Nintendo had the graphics, right?
They had the Mode 7, they had Star Fox, and those like silicon graphics or whatever they call it, where they use that animation and built it into like the Donkey Kong Country. I mean, to this day, I still think, well, this is kind of giving away what my next pick is going to be, but to this day, I love all three Donkey Kong Country,
Sure.
and I think they still look as good today as they did then.
Absolutely. They're great games. I mean,
Well, yeah,
Sonic
back to
2
Sonic
though.
2.
Yeah. Continue.
Back to Sonic 2. I got on a tangent there. But I said that because it is so important in that battle that they had, that Sonic 2 came out, they would have been nowhere near Super Nintendo sales if they hadn't had Sonic 2.
Sure. Well,
And I mean, it was so popular. 2 animated shows, man.
Oh yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I
Sonic
think
animated shows.
Sonic 2 probably enabled that, right? I don't know exactly the dates on release, but I'm betting it was a lot easier to greenlight that TV show because of Sonic the Hedgehog 2.
Oh yeah, it's very popular. I mean, there was, fast food toys of it.
The comic
There was
books.
shirts, there was merch, bedspreads, everything. It was like Sonic friendly, because Sonic had that attitude, man.
Oh yeah.
And Mario didn't have an attitude. Sonic was like he would kick his feet if he's waiting too long for you to move him in the game. He'd be like, "Come on, let's go." He would flash, he would just be like, just all kinds of attitude, and that's what Sega was about. And Mario, as fun as Mario was, it didn't really have that attitude, and that kind of was what Sega was all about at that time. They were about that kind of angst and cool factor.
They were trying to appeal to the slightly older kids, your older brother, right? That's who they were trying to target demographically with the way they did their marketing. And it was probably a good strategy because Nintendo had the kids market so locked down by that point.
Yeah, and there's so many memorable levels, and once again, the soundtrack feels like a greatest hits. It's when you look at some of these games that we grew up with, it's almost like they were firing on all cylinders on a development level. It's baffling that everything can be so good, from the level design to the controls to the music. And they had big teams working on these games.
Sure.
And they put a lot of money into these games, and they didn't chintz in any way. They got the best guys to do the soundtracks.
And they were complete on release. They were actually games that once they shipped, that was it. You
didn't have to wait for DLC.
Yep, it was, and you didn't have to do any downloads of any kind, any updates. And there was a standard of quality that, in my opinion, no longer exists in the industry, at least not with the major players. Now, I know there's a lot of indie studios that do a lot of hard work to make sure their games are solid, but and they do a great job overall. But I feel like a lot of the major studios have really dropped the ball on quality at release, unfortunately, these days.
Totally agree.
And it's unfortunate, right? Because all the major players, they have so much money. It's not like they can't afford to do testing and make sure a product is more solid at release. And I realize like computers are more complicated, consoles are more complicated than they used to be. So, I'm not trying to attack these people or anything. It's just there is a certain amount of nostalgia and appreciation I have from a technical perspective as well for these older games. Because the quality was there. It was so rare, right, that you would play a game and find a legitimate error or bug that was game breaking. Like I don't think the entire time I was a kid, I don't think I ever found a single game breaking bug. Something that I couldn't get around or, whatever.
The game breaking bug is when you accidentally kick the console or somebody
right.
like nudges it with their shoe, like your mom's like vacuuming,
right?
And like she nudges it, and then it freezes. The consoles love to do that, especially the NES.
Yep.
You just breathe on it wrong, and it freezes.
That's right. And then you gotta take the game out. That was the big thing, was the boot up, right? It's like, okay, every now and then you gotta take the game out, blow it, blow into the cartridge, and then try to restart it. And usually it worked fine after that, but they still do. That's what's amazing about those old cartridges. I mean, they've held up so well over the years.
One thing I love about all the Dr. Robotnik boss fights in the Sonic games, and especially Sonic 2, he's always got like his ingenious robotic thing that he gets into. Kind of like Wily does in the Mega Man.
Sure.
But I honestly think that it's a little more creative than like even like the Bowser fights you get in some of the Marios.
Yeah.
Because like, take a game like it's Super Mario 3. Like, it's a perfect game. I love it. But you know how all those like kid bosses feel the same?
They're very similar.
Hands at the end.
Yep.
And you get the wand every time, and you float. Do 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 do. And you.
Yep.
But they feel samey. Like, right? But Robotnik, he's got a different vehicle every time, and you got to find its weakness.
Right.
I like that.
Well, it makes sense, right? He's this super genius, evil scientist guy. Of course, he's going to have a bunch of different mechs and flying machines and crazy robots.
And they're awesome.
Yeah. They're great, and it fits so well with the plot of the story and the setting and everything. And what did Mario have? Oh, he had to fight like all the offspring of Bowser or whatever, and so they're all kind of the same, right?
And I'm not even knocking Mario because, like, I literally always have to get every Mario game that comes out,
Oh yeah.
even if they're not very good. You know, and aside from like Mario's Time Machine or, you know, there's been very few duds, and it's an extremely
Right.
consistent series, and I love them all. But I just need to point out the diversity of awesome boss battles from Robotnik that I don't hear enough praise for. And I love the element too when you free all the hostage animals.
Oh, me too.
I used to love that as a kid.
Yep.
You smash the little silver lock container and free them all, and they all look so happy.
Yep.
You feel like you did a good service.
And that's
for
how
the
evil Robotnik was, right? Because he was kidnapping and imprisoning all these animals. So
yeah,
you got to set them free and feel really good about it. Just like in Mario, where you get to set the toadstools free, right? In certain
Yep.
games, like you feel good about it, you know?
oh yeah,
It's so wholesome. I love it. Now it gets a little annoying every now and then that Peach is always in another castle. You kind of feel like, oh
I know.
man, well I'm never gonna finish this thing. But all right, I saved another toadstool. That's cool.
that's key. That's beating a dead horse with that. You know, she's in another castle.
She's in another castle, yeah. And even after you save her from the last castle, you know, well, it'll be another year or two before there'll be 10 new castles I got to go through to save her again. But you know, we keep buying the games, we keep playing them because they're great games, you know. But
Absolutely.
not taking anything away from Mario or Nintendo. You got to play those Mario games. But that is a very cool pick that you picked Sonic 2 because it was such an amazing challenger to Mario and Nintendo's throne that it could move so many units of Sega's and ultimately spawn so many sequels.
Yep.
So, yeah, wow, what an awesome pick. So, let me ask you this then, since you're such a big Sonic fan: Sonic or Tails?
Oh, Sonic all day.
Yeah.
And then Knuckles would be second, and then
Okay.
Tails.
Yeah.
But I just think that is a good sidekick, though. But like Knuckles has that cool factor too.
Oh yeah. Knuckles had so
You
much
know?
attitude of his own, right?
And he can fly, man.
Yeah.
Tails can do the hover with the helicopter tail,
Right.
but Knuckles can just soar,
Yes.
and that's so good
Absolutely.
to utilize that.
Yep. They're making a new movie, I think, or TV series, right, about Knuckles is coming out. I think.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah, I haven't
Seen
watched
the
it yet.
teaser or whatever.
Yeah, but I'll bet that'll be awesome.
Oh yeah.
So I think it's great that they're still releasing stuff like that. That's how iconic those characters were. Nintendo just had the Super Mario Bros. Movie, a year or two ago, but we're still getting new Sonic the Hedgehog stories in film and TV. I think that's great, even though Sega doesn't make consoles anymore. And honestly, it's a good time to mention it, I think. There was a brief moment in time shortly after that where we had 4 major players in the console wars. With Sega had the Dreamcast right at the end before, you know, they got out of the console game, and it was such an amazing moment in history to have the Dreamcast, the PS2, the GameCube, and the first Xbox all going against each other for like a year or two. It was such a short period of time, but it was such an awesome thing. I'm so glad that Sega survived that long to be a part of that, and I really wish that they had been able to stay in the game beyond it, because they definitely brought a lot of unique things to the table in the console
What
market.
a time to be alive. I love the Dreamcast.
Oh yeah, I loved it too. I never had one, but I always loved playing them. I thought the games for it were fantastic. So
I remember the band I was in, the rock band I was in. Their name was, I think I've told you this story before. Our name was Threshold, so people always thought we were going to be metal, but we were more alternative rock.
Okay.
But we just liked the name, and it looked good on some of the art and the shirts we were making at the time.
Awesome.
But when I brought home a Dreamcast because nobody else we knew had one, and I got the House of the Dead 2 game with the actual guns.
Yeah.
So it felt like arcade in my house.
Yes.
And they were mind blown, like that, dude. This is like we're at the arcade playing this and just holding the gun with the force feedback.
Yeah.
And playing it on there. It's arcade perfect. That port.
It must have been so much fun. Did they have any Time Crisis games on Dreamcast that would work with the light guns?
That's a good question. I would think so, but I'm not positive.
Yeah, I was just curious because I love the Time Crisis games. They're still some of my favorite arcade games of all time.
But, oh yeah, they're so good. And you hit the little kick thing to go up. You're ducking, and then you hit the little stomp.
Yep.
Foot switch.
That's
whatever.
Right. Foot switch to duck behind stuff, and then let up on it, and you could shoot everybody, and then get back down before you get hit. It was so much fun, so immersive. Really like a precursor to VR in a way. Those more immersive arcade games. And
people forget that you had to wait, man. When you go to the arcade, these were the hottest games in the street.
Right.
And there'd be a line to play Time Crisis. Yep. There would be a line to play House of the Dead. And people would stack their quarters up. And they'd you know what I mean? Gatekeep you out of there until they're done.
Yep. And
you'd be waiting.
And they would cost a lot, right? I mean, Time Crisis.
Oh yeah,
House
like
of
a buck.
Dead, they were $1.
They'd be $1 at least.
They were $1 at least, whereas most arcade games were still 50 cents, and some of them were even 25 cents. Still at that point.
Yep.
So it was a big deal to go play Time Crisis or House of the Dead. It meant you had a little more money than some of the other kids usually. So maybe you didn't have more money, but you knew what you were going to spend your money on. It was going to be a few rounds of Time Crisis or House of the Dead, just because they were.
Yeah, you didn't mind that it was more expensive because it was living out an action movie playing those.
Yeah, it was so great. So wow, that's awesome. Sonic the Hedgehog 2, man, you're making me want to go back and watch the old cartoon. I still remember the theme song from it, getting so pumped up watching it as a kid. I love that theme song for the cartoon of Sonic.
He's the fastest thing alive. Great song.
So good. And again, so different from Mario, but yeah. There'll never be another one like Sonic, for sure. So, what you hinted at it before, but what's your final pick, Ryan?
DKC, Donkey Kong Country.
All right, the first one.
Yes, and I love the second one too. Third one's okay.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like the first one's perfect because the second one gets difficult and you lose Donkey Kong.
Right.
You know, you got Diddy, you got Dixie. Okay, and Dixie's clutch for, flying.
Oh yeah.
But the first one, man, oh my god, I think it was the best looking game at the time out of anything.
Yep.
The way that game looked, nothing looked like it.
Yep. It was amazing that the Super Nintendo could produce such a cool, like, sort of pseudo 3D experience.
Rare as a developer was so good at this time.
Absolutely.
Rare was like hitting home run after home run.
Yep.
David Wise did the soundtrack.
Yep.
I mean, just think of the underwater stage.
Mm-hmm.
That's like one of the most iconic video game songs ever, and you feel like you're underwater listening to that.
Yep.
And it's a freaking 16-bit console to make you feel that on a 16-bit console, like you're underwater.
Yep.
That's an achievement.
Absolutely. The graphics are amazing. The music, all of it. I still remember the first time I played it, and it was just like, it almost felt like you were on a different console because of how like amazing the audio-visual experience was of that. It's like you said, I mean, it was like the best looking game at the time. I think you're absolutely right. I mean, because that was what, 94? 95 maybe?
Yeah, I couldn't give you the exact year, but it was just like, it was blowing games away. I mean, just nothing looked like it.
The PlayStation wasn't out yet, I don't think. And maybe the Saturn had come out, but, it was so expensive, none of us had it anyway as kids. But yeah, that was like such a good looking game at the time. I liked it so much I ended up getting the whole trilogy. I remember that. I was trading games at pawn shops, you know, to get that whole trilogy eventually, because, you know, back then all we could do was go to EB Games or Toys R Us, like you said, pay retail, or you know.
And man, they really kill it with the pirate theming, with the pirate theme of the second one.
Oh yeah.
I think 3 is they're a little too tough on 3.
Yeah.
I don't think 3 is as bad as people say. I think it's not as consistent, and it's a little bit uneven, like the pacing.
Mm-hmm.
Like some of the levels that you start out with are just not that great.
Right.
Well, I do think you have to look at, you know, I'm picking Donkey Kong Country, but I do look at it as a trilogy. And they're just so fun. And
yes.
switching between Donkey Kong and Diddy. You know, Diddy's got his cartwheels. There's such a polish and a sheen to the controls. They're just locked down tight in that game. The controls, you can't. I mean, and that's why I think a lot of like speedrunners get on that, because you can just seamlessly go through that game, and it's so polished. And you know, if you know where your spots are to be, you're just gonna just coast through it. And not saying that it's easy, but it's the right amount of difficulty too. The level design's amazing. You know, you can jump on it.
Big variety, right, of characters and all of the different animals. I love that it's just like all animals in those games.
Like the rhino and the ostrich.
And the alligators. As a kid, that was like an extra level of fun, right? Because, you know, we all love different kinds of animals, and they're like all in Donkey Kong Country.
You know, we talk about how you free the animals in Sonic 2, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I love you do your dance after you hit the bullseye at the end of each.
Oh, yeah.
You do a little Donkey Kong dance. It's hilarious. It makes me laugh every time you do it.
Yep.
You know? I love going around the map world because it's like top down, but you like swim through a part and you get to this other part and you click on. It's a great like overworld design when you go stage to stage. It's amazing. I mean, you know, it's like years later than Super Mario World, but just let's think how good that looks compared to Mario World. I mean, Mario World was a huge achievement, masterpiece, maybe one of the best ever in the Mario games.
Yeah.
But
absolutely.
It was kind of more of the same. It was more polished, but it was more of the same. You go on something like Donkey Kong Country, this is like, you're like, what even is this? This is just, you know? It's not more of the same.
It was not more of the same of Mario. I mean, you know, a similar sort of platformer style for the levels as far as like how things worked, but obviously they had different powers and all the characters were quite different from Mario. And Mario World was very much Super Mario Brothers 4, right? It was, it took everything 3 did and it added a bunch of new sort of powers. You know, you had the feather so you could fly with the cape, and
Yoshi added really cool.
so much. And Yoshi, of course. Yoshi
is so good.
Yoshi's my boy, man. I love Yoshi. You know, yeah, he was so much fun. I have a lot of nostalgia for Mario World because it was the first game I ever owned.
Yeah, and I'm bringing it up because it would have been either Super Mario World or Donkey Kong Country. I had to. I kind of wanted to go with just one. I don't want to put both in there.
Sure.
Because then it's almost like too specifically Super Nintendo based love. Right. I wanted to kind of do one or the other, and I'd rather just, as far as innovation, I'd rather just go Donkey Kong Country for what that game did.
Yeah, I think that was probably the more innovative one. Like you said, Mario World was a huge accomplishment for the time that they did it, but Donkey Kong Country was such a bigger
new
leap.
ground.
Yeah, like technically and everything beyond that, and also to take one of their older properties, you know, from the arcade and build a whole world around it, and such a complete game that is certainly on par with Mario World in terms of how big it is and how much fun it is. That also is a huge accomplishment, considering there were no precursors to Donkey Kong Country for those characters other than the arcade. Am I
Also,
correct
just
about
to
that?
remind people of like what Rare was doing too at that time. I mean, when they put out Killer Instinct, when
Oof,
Rare did that,
yeah,
the graphics in that and the combo breaker and just the sounds,
yep,
people walked away from Mortal Kombat, which
yeah,
was almost unheard of.
yep,
And Mortal Kombat was the shiznit at
yep,
that time, and they walked right over to Killer Instinct. It was like Mortal Kombat was like yesterday's news when Killer Instinct dropped. I remember it.
yep.
And there was a line. We talk about that line in the arcade. There was a line for Killer Instinct, and yeah, Mortal Kombat was still great at that time. But it's like what Rare was doing graphically, nobody was touching it.
Well, and at that point, we were only a few years away from GoldenEye, too.
Yeah,
So, Rare just continued to dominate through the mid and late 90s, right? With
Diddy Kong Racing was coming.
oh,
Banjo
yeah.
Kazooie.
They know two of the best N64 games, in my opinion.
Yeah.
To this day, Diddy Kong Racing is one of my favorite racing games ever.
So has anybody picked any of these 5 yet?
No, you. These are all you, man. These are all
Cool.
I had a feeling it was gonna be you were gonna have a unique set, and you certainly didn't disappoint. So this is fantastic. I love your picks, and obviously you stayed very true to your namesake on YouTube. So being so retro, that's very cool. Yeah. Wow. Anything else you wanna say about these games, or other memories you have?
Just that they're infinitely replayable too. I mean, I'm never gonna play any of these 5 and not have a good time.
Right.
I'm never gonna get sick of them. Because there's games that I think are even masterpieces, but I would get sick of them. It doesn't mean I can infinitely replay them.
Absolutely.
Yep.
That is another level that I think Nintendo in particular mastered so well from a relatively early stage. I mean, you can go back and play the original Legend of Zelda, the original Mario Brothers, and just have. I mean, you could just play those forever, and it would be so much fun. And each iteration they did after that added so much, I think, to those franchises. In much the same way, right? It's like I was talking to a friend the other day about how I told you about Mario World was my first video game that I owned. I had played Mario Brothers 3 and the first Mario Brothers at friends' houses on their NESs, but once I got Super Mario World, it was like I never looked back. I did play Mario All-Stars. I got Mario All-Stars on the SNES, and I was playing that. But I have a stronger connection with Mario World. But also, I just started playing Mario Odyssey on the Switch last year, and it was the same kind of feeling that I got when I went into Toys R Us in 1996 and played Mario 64 for the first time. It was just like,
so epic.
This game is so beautiful, and just took the franchise to a totally new level.
The dinosaur part, the T-Rex.
Yeah, the T-Rex part. Oh my God, it's incredible. It's incredible to me that the Switch could do that technically. So it's like Nintendo still pushes what their hardware is capable of with
if it's like
games.
If somebody has a Switch and they don't have like Mario Odyssey and like Mario Kart, or like they said, what are you even doing? Like, do you even own the system? Like,
right.
You know what I mean?
You've got to have those Mario games. They're just so much fun. And
going back to my 5th pick, the biggest oversight, man. Where is the new Donkey Kong Country?
Oh, I know. I've been feeling the same way. I didn't actually get to play Tropical Freeze. I didn't have a Wii U, and I haven't found it on Switch yet. But I would love to play that at some point. But I mean, that's the only game we've had since the OG trilogy, right?
And I'll keep complaining until it happens.
Right?
Because I'm not going to be satisfied till it happens. Because all we're going to get, dude, the Switch is such a slam dunk. Donkey Kong Country, that would be a game. if they had put out a new one like they should have had ready for Switch and not just a port of the Wii U Tropical Freeze, it would have been, I promise you, in the top 5 best sellers on the console. That's how popular it would have been.
Sure.
Whether it was 4th or 5th place, it would have been in there.
Absolutely.
And they've underutilized one of the best mascots ever.
Right. Well, and the other thing is, I forgot there was Donkey Kong 64, right? Was that the last one before Tropical Freeze?
Then there was Donkey Kong Returns on Wii.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, that's what I mean. It's such an oversight. Like we got one that was new on Wii. We got one that was new on Wii U, and then the Switch, which is going to go down as one of their best-selling consoles they've ever put out.
Yep.
We didn't get a new one. What?
Well, it's in competition right now with the PS2, I believe, for best-selling console ever. Right?
Yeah.
We don't know how it's going to finish up because Nintendo's still selling it. I was in Walmart the other day. They're still selling base Switches for $300. They're selling the OLEDs for $350. It's crazy how high demand these things are still in. I mean, this is what? It's been 7 years since the Switch came out.
Yeah.
And it's amazing to me that Nintendo was able to keep the retail price basically very close to where it was at launch. That's just been incredible to watch for hardware that is not as powerful as the Xbox and the PlayStation. You know, it's fast. I mean, that's how good their games are. They obviously sell consoles based on their library more than anything. So, yeah, it is a shame that we didn't get a Donkey Kong Country game on the Switch.
For sure.
I mean, we didn't really even get a legit Star Fox game either, right? We got that Starlink thing, but that was on a bunch of consoles, and it had Star Fox on the Switch version of it, but it wasn't really a Star Fox game.
We got a Star Fox on the Wii U, and I think it was I think it was decent. I really do.
Mm-hmm.
And they can't port it easily because of what you're using the Wii U gamepad for.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to be easy to just port that to Switch.
Sure.
And that's why they haven't. But I do think that's a good one.
I would like to play it at some point. I didn't have a Wii U, so I missed most of the games from that generation. But yeah, obviously they've produced so many more Mario games than Donkey Kong. But I do think it's unfortunate because at least for gamers, I can't imagine most gamers wouldn't consider Donkey Kong to be right on par with Mario in terms of quality for a platforming experience. You know?
I mean, they're going to have such a hit with all these Mario movies that I wouldn't be surprised if they don't make a Donkey Kong standalone.
Sure.
Because there's such a world to explore there, and there's so many great characters in that world, and with funny names. You know, Cranky Kong, Dixie. They got funny names. They're well designed characters. They're not like one note characters. There's a lot of potential there.
Absolutely.
For a movie.
I think there's potential with Nintendo's properties, certainly between Mario, Donkey Kong, and Star Fox.
Zelda too.
And Zelda too as well. But certainly like the animal-based stuff, right? Like Star Fox and Donkey Kong and Mario. Like I feel like all three of those properties, there could be so many crossover stories and things that they would potentially do together, because the animals are like the core common thread between those Nintendo games. So much of what we talked about tonight was been about animals, right? You were even talking about with Sonic how cool it was that the animals are freed at the end of the level. That's what we really connected with when we were kids, was, you know, oh cool, it's fun. All this animal stuff is just super fun. I mean, what kid doesn't love animals? You know, it was brilliant.
Yeah, I've always been an animal lover.
Yeah, it was brilliant of Nintendo to make their primary properties, their primary franchises so heavy in animals. And what are Pokemon? They're basically animals. They're fantasy, you know, like animals that are super cute and awesome.
Why do people watch cat videos, dog videos? They have so much personality.
Yeah.
We're always underplaying how much personality pets really have and how smart they really are, because they just have the ability to have a lot of human-like characteristics. You know, just the things that they do, and they're very captivating and funny to watch, and that's why they work so good in like a video game.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for joining me, Ryan, and sharing your top 5 games. Where is the best place for people to catch you?
You guys can catch me. The best thing to catch me on is my live streams Tuesday nights at 10. And the reason I say that is I'm doing a thing now where every time I'm live on Tuesday night, I'm giving you a new video, premiering only on the live stream. And then I upload it that Friday. But you can see it first when you catch me live. And for right now, it's like the next 9 weeks are going to be toy compilations. So every time you watch me live, you're getting a brand new toy compilation that's 10 to 15 minutes of toys that I haven't put on a video yet before. So you're getting a lot of my content during the live stream. So you can come on, request a game, and I play footage related to the game or that period of time. And I also do cover songs live on stream that I perform on an acoustic guitar and sing. So, I mean, that's the best way to catch me.
And you take requests, because you've taken my requests before for live covers, which is very cool. That's just that by itself is a reason to show up, in my opinion. The show is so unique with all of the old commercials and your live music. I've never seen a show like it that involved gaming as well. So yeah, definitely check it out if you want to see that stuff again, because it's a really fun presentation Ryan does on his channel.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely, and thank you so much for joining me for this review of your favorite games. I'm having a blast making these videos, and I'm so glad to learn more about what some of your favorites are.
You know, just to summarize kind of why I picked what I did too, to put a little extra icing on the cake of why. You know, I love all the consoles from, NES all the way up to modern now, right?
Right.
And I love all these systems for different reasons. But I really feel like the reason I connect with these 8-bit and 16-bit ones is because it's tied in with my childhood and that magic and those moments as we grow up that I connected with those, that it takes me back to that feeling. You know, only time will tell, like on some of these modern systems where I love tons of the libraries, but only time will tell, will I be nostalgic of those moments in 10, 20 years? And I need time to tell on that first.
Sure.
So I'm just giving some explanation of why I picked what I did, because I love retro and modern, even though I'm RetroRyan, right?
Right.
But the reason why is, like I say, the replayability of why I picked what I did and the effect they had on me during those formative years and what they meant to me at that time. So that's why I picked what I did. And I couldn't tell you till 10, 20 years from now what a lot of these modern games, maybe my list will change for those. Only time will tell.
Thank you for watching the show. If you made it this far, please like, subscribe, and share with your friends. Let us know what you thought in the comments below, and let us know if you would like to be the next guest on my top 5.